Now, we are going to move on to our next use case session, and this time we're looking at hidden champions, using AI to support clinical staff and transferable insights from AI use cases in the pharmaceutical industry. Here to tell us more, please welcome the lead data scientist at Unit 8, Florian Roessler. Hi.
Thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. Well, first of all, thanks for the organizers for this fantastic event. My name is Florian. I'm a lead data scientist at Unit 8. And I'll be talking today about hidden champions using AI to support clinical staff and transferable insights from AI use cases in the pharmaceutical industry. So usually at these events, we would have our CEO speaking, but today I have the honor to speak to you because he's literally just hours away of becoming a dad for a second time. So that gives me the honor of speaking here today. So Unit 8, just a little bit about us. We are a data and AI service provider working across a variety of industries such as banking and insurance, pharma, healthcare, automotive and aviation, and Industry 4.0. But the fact that we as a service provider are here today to speak about a use case within the healthcare sector is really exciting because it means the space is opening up. There are more use cases being done at the primary healthcare facilities, and they're bringing in service providers such as us to help them. So I'm really excited about the fact that something that a couple of years ago wasn't possible is now possible. So before I talk about hidden champions, I want to briefly spend some time about visible champions. And for me, within the healthcare and pharmaceutical sector, that is really the kind of branches and leaves of a tree. It's the kind of visible champions that project the vision that what AI can do within healthcare. So these are projects like enhanced diagnostics through computer vision, leveraging big data in real-world evidence, such as OpenSafely that we've seen just before, but also accelerated drug development for AI-supported lead generation. So really, these projects are showing the vision of that space. But then there's also hidden champions. These are kind of the roots of the whole endeavor that build the foundation on which we can deliver this vision. And really what we're talking here is augmentation and optimization of core operational processes, infrastructure migration, and workforce enablement. So I want to take today and talk a little bit about more use cases out of the hidden champions section. So what attributes do hidden champion projects have? So for me and for us, we really want to build trust in AI and advanced analytics use cases. We want to improve AI capabilities within the sector and deliver clear proof of value and proof of trust. And usually these kind of projects don't make the news, right? Like when was the last time you heard about a successful infrastructure project? You usually hear about the failures, such as a couple of weeks ago with Facebook. So when we talk about AI in primary healthcare, usually people think first about this use case, enhanced diagnostic using computer vision, or for example, within the X-ray analysis. But there's another space within the healthcare sector where AI really can help, and that is this one. Administrative task is really a burden on the current delivery speed in primary healthcare. And to give you some numbers, we have up to 70% time spent on administrative tasks by healthcare professional. In 2020 alone, in the US, over 200 billion were spent on administrative costs. And across Europe, we have a burnout rate of healthcare professionals between 5 to 25%. So there's a really big issue where we can have an impact using AI here. So we are currently working with a major European hospital in order to bring some of the knowledge that we've gained in other industries to their operational endeavors. And they have built already a data science team that talks about enhanced diagnostics and looks about that. And we are currently looking with them at this use case, using AI in ICD-10 ops and DRG coding. So just briefly, what's happening here? So if a patient stays within a hospital and gets discharged, he's issued a discharge letter in which the diagnosis and all the procedures are detailed that happened during his stay. This discharge letter also gets forwarded to coders that work within the hospital and that read the letter and code it up into a variety of codes, such as ICD-10 for diagnosis, CHOP, for example, for procedures, but also DRG codes. And DRG codes are really one of the backbones of the administrative workload within hospitals, right? The primary function for them is to be used for billing to insurances, but they're also used for statistics, for staffing decision, and a lot more. To give you a little bit of idea of the complexity of this process is, in a big hospital, we usually on a yearly basis have 30 to 50,000 stays. We have up to 14,000 ICD-10 codes. And initially, we thought, oh, you know, maybe not all of them are getting used. But our data analysis showed that 11,000 are used on a very, very frequent basis. So we also have approximately 20 to 30 coders working full-time on this task. And they spend approximately 2 minutes to 3 days per letter. And that doesn't even include the time they spent when the insurance comes back and says, wait, we're not going to pay this. So you can see that the complexity of this problem is vast. So what are we doing? So I took you through the process of, so I want to talk about 2 projects here. I took you through the process of the discharge letter, the coders, and the codes. And really, we come in at the end of the process initially. We use natural language processing to kind of learn how to translate the discharge letters into ICD-10 codes. And what we're doing in the initial phase is really installing a quality gate at the end. What we want to achieve with that is twofold, right? The first thing is training that model to be able to understand the language used in this discharge letter and how that translates into the subsequent codes. And at the same time, the second thing we are doing with that is we can, and as you've seen, it's been a rather complex process, we can detect mistakes that were done during the coding process. And if we detect them, we are able to send them back for further scrutiny or to just be passed along because they might actually be true. And really what we've achieved with this is identifying up to 80% of errors within kind of these coding processes in some cases. The second project here talks a little bit about, now that we have a quality gate, now that we've built an understanding of how to translate the language used in discharge letter to codes, how can we move that insight up the value chain? And this is probably not a new story for some of you, because using machine learning to do ICD-10 DRG coding is nothing new. There's publications about it. But so there are 2 benefits of that. So the first one is, if we bring this up the value chain, we can start coding simpler use cases automatically to lessen the burden on the healthcare professionals. But at the same time, because we now build an understanding of the various sections within the ICD-10 codes, we can route specific discharge letter to experts to look at them instead of just randomly assigning them. So we have like 2 benefits on this use case. And we're having some initial really successful results with that, and it's super exciting because the hospitals are really benefiting from that. So at this point, I kind of want to take a step back a little bit and zoom out. So if we think about the overall journey that a sector has within the AI adoption, we have seen so far that the healthcare sector is more or less in this gain awareness and experiment and proof of value phase if we think about primary healthcare institutions. That's not to say that there are super advanced use cases in collaborations, but if we think about what's happening in the hospital by themselves, we kind of see the sector at the moment at this space. But there's also an adjacent sector, really, that is the pharmaceutical sector. And we've worked over the past years with a lot of big EU and US companies. And really what we've seen is a variety of use cases across delivering of data in AI solution and scaling of data in AI infrastructure. So really, at this point, we can look what has happened there because it's an adjacent sector with not as harsh regulatory constraints, but still quite substantial. So what can we learn from that? So some of the achievements that POC and farmers have done over the past years that we worked on. So for example, in production line optimization that we've done as kind of a hidden champion project, we've seen an overall efficiency gain of up to 10% across all of these projects. If we go more on the R&D side of things, optimizing chemical formulation processes has yielded a reduction in costs of up to 5 million a year. And this has been achieved by reducing wastage and increasing yield of chemical processes. So, but here's also the problem. Like all of these POCs, they usually have one thing in common. When they start, they look a little bit like this. Data science is easy, just pick the right platform, which usually means that every group within an organization just picks the right platform for them, which is not the same across these teams. And also, regulatory and scaling concerns are first put aside in order to, just deliver the initial proof of concept. And what we see now currently happening in a lot of the pharmaceutical industry is that we have an evolution of AI use cases through infrastructure. And really, because the proof of value and proof of concept has been delivered already and has been recognized, we now see that we need to scale up this overall process by making kind of the infrastructure around AI use cases GXP compliant, fair, sustainable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, and also really to care deeply about data governance and auditability. And all of that usually was started to kind of support this left pillar that you see in the diagram, the advanced analytics and AI use cases. But as we're scaling up these things and as we train the workforce within the organizations, we see that right pillar emerging as well, which is around reporting, analytics, and self-service use cases, which is really exciting because you now have a workforce that can use the data made available within the organization much more efficiently. And all of that should be covered by compliance and regulations, as well as central data and use case management. But also at the bottom, we see primary data sources. So everybody was super excited. We just dump all this data in a data warehouse, and it's going to be happy days. But really, what we're seeing at the moment is that we have this huge technical depth where we currently see a lot of movement within data engineering, data catalogs, data platform, and ML ops, really because that is necessary to enrich the primary data sources, make them usable in order to actually deliver on these use cases. And here I want to kind of draw back to the healthcare sector. So we've kind of seen the future now with the pharmaceutical industries that the infrastructure is so important. So I think when talking about the healthcare sector, we should start thinking now and working now on scaling up this infrastructure. And I think it's an even bigger challenge within the healthcare sector. And I'm really excited to listen to the next talk. I think it's a collaboration of 28 hospitals. I think parallel to this session, there's also a session on federated learning. So there is a lot of collaboration and technology coming up in that space in order to help with the infrastructure. But the faster we get this going, the quicker we will be able in reducing that lag. So I hope we can deliver on that. So at the end, I kind of want to go back to this picture. I hope I was able to convince you that we both need these visionary projects that are the leaves and the branches of the tree that show the vision where health, AI, and healthcare can go, but also that we need these hidden roots and foundational projects that allow us to then scale and deliver on that promise that AI has for the healthcare sector. And I think there's some really exciting talks happening today as well about that. So at the end, I would just like to thank you very much for your attention. I'll be here all day, so if you want to come for a chat, we are somewhere in this room. And thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much. Any questions, please raise your hands for what you've just been listening to there, and we'll get a microphone to you. And don't forget, of course, to submit your questions to our online family that are with us as well via the app. It's been interesting when I was talking earlier to names, Dr. Chris Bates, I was asking him about his one point that he really wanted to resonate with the audience. And for you, what would that be, Florian?
So for me, it would really be that the vision is one thing, but delivering on that vision is probably the biggest challenge that we have at the moment. So for me, it's really important to raise awareness of all the projects that are going on that usually don't make the news, but that are key to really deliver on the promise of healthcare.
And that's so important. And how
Yes.
do you get that out there if you're not getting the spotlight shone in terms of media?
Well, I think it would be interesting to really see big companies, so like Novartis with their Data42 platform already is driving a lot of the marketing campaign. But we also see that in big tech companies, Facebook and Google are coming out to say that 70% of their workforce is working on infrastructure and platform teams. So that is really, like these numbers we need to be public out there and not just see the shiny use cases because even though they're exciting, they not always represent
And they
what's
don't tell
happening.
the full story,
Exactly,
do they?
yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate your
Absolutely.
time. Florian, everybody, give him a round of applause. Thank you.